Scott Guest. I am the Chief Photojournalist at KVUE News. As Chief Photojournalist, number one, I am a photojournalist, so I go out and shoot and gather news, working with reporters every day, operating live trucks. I've been a photojournalist for KVUE News for over 15 years. I started there in 1994, and I left for 10 months and came back, but I'm still working with the same company, so about 15 years total with KVUE. As a photojournalist, you're doing the basic skills of a filmmaker, but you're doing them at what we call the speed of news. Doing things very quickly, setting up, tearing down. The best experience you get from being a photojournalist is doing it day in and day out in a constantly changing atmosphere, whether it be on the side of a street where there's an accident or the Capitol building where the legislators are working on some law or something. You never know where you're going to be. So as I tell all of my photographers when I hire them, your job as a photojournalist is to be prepared. So let's go. Okay, for standard live shot, I'm basically incorporating almost all of my equipment. I use all of my photo gear, I use my lights, and a $250,000 live remote vehicle. The van it's a extended Ford Econoline van. The basic features that it has is a 40-foot mast that telescopes up to 40 feet, or 45 feet, somewhere around in there. It has a tuning dish on the top, it has a transmitter, and working with an engineer, I point to our one of two receiving towers, establish a signal, run a long cable from the truck to the camera, run power out for lights, and we set up and we go live, and it's all going back to the station, so they have us routed into their systems, and when they're ready to take us, they punch us on their board and we're up live. It's very helpful to have a college degree or been with some type of educational entity, mostly because it opens doors for you. It allows you to get internships at various stations. Basic photography is an essential. Still photography is, I think, a lot of people don't think they need to be a still photographer to be a videographer. But if you're not a good still photographer, you're going to be a bad videographer. So basic photography is really good. Communication skills. Most of what we do is constantly dealing with various people. People from all aspects of society. Like I said earlier, we could be dealing with, I could be interviewing the governor of Texas, or I could be interviewing a guy who's homeless on the street. It just runs the gambit, and from every situation you can think of. Education-wise, you really just need, you don't need specific education because a lot of it's learned on the job, but you need basic editing skills, video editing skills, basic photography and shooting skills. And what you really need to put something together is some storytelling skills. Our live truck has exactly the equipment in it that we need to use. To set up the live truck, it has to be parked with the front end facing whatever tower I think I'm going to be pointing at. Start the generator, turn on all the breakers to turn all the power on internally. One of those would be the compressor. Air compressor is pumped into the mast, which begins going up. And then I've got a joystick controller to point the dish where I want it to go. I go back and forth. The engineer back at the station is turning his dish back and forth, and we basically go back and forth until we get a good signal lined up together. Then we run power out to our spot, and then run cable out to our spot. And by cable, I mean we call it a Trimese cable. It's approximately 300 feet long, and with it runs 2 channels of audio going to the truck, 1 channel of audio coming from the truck, and video. And what that allows us to do is to have 2 microphones plugged in, 1 camera plugged in, and then an IFB internal feedback so that the talent can hear what's going on at the station. Usually I usually work in the mornings, which is dark. So I do a basic 3-point lighting, a rear light on my talent, a key light, and then a background light. And oftentimes, as this morning, for instance, I use 2 background lights just because I needed a little bit more light. Well, you know, in television news, a lot of people are very attention deficit, is all I can say. A lot of times you say, what'd you do yesterday? And the answer is, I'm not really sure. As far as most memorable, there's 3 things that come to my mind. Once, early in my career, I came upon an overturned fuel tanker truck that was on fire and basically looked like an oil well fire. It was spewing a tower of fire into the air. And I got within, because I got there before any of the authorities did, I got inside whatever perimeter they actually set up, and I was within probably 100 yards of the tanker as it was burning. And that was right in the front of the entrance to Vandenberg Air Force Base. Probably the biggest thing is the Jarrell tornado. In 1997, May 27, we heard of a tornado in the Belton area. We drove north. Long story short, I spotted the needle of the hurricane forming just north of the Jarrell exit. Jumped out of the vehicle, got it on the tripod, started shooting immediately. Didn't even take time to white balance or anything, just started shooting, because most times in a tornado it appears and disappears within a matter of minutes. So I wanted to make sure I had video of it. Once I saw it was becoming stable, I got a quick white balance, got back on the tornado, and shot various focal lengths of the tornado. I zoomed in with the doubler, I zoomed out wide, just to get as many different angles and views of the tornado as I could. I shot that tornado until it closed to within about 500 yards of our position. At that point, we decided it would be safer to move, and because the tornado was continuing to grow as it moved south, we moved north slightly. We looked back, tornado was even bigger than it was before. Eventually it turned into an F5 tornado and killed 27 people in the town of Jarrell, literally sucked pavement off the road. And that was a big day for me because, one, I shot a tornado. I mean, how many people get to see a tornado? And not only did I get to see one, but I was there with professional video gear, was able to shoot it with good equipment. And then ABC Network News came in, took my tapes, and the first 6 minutes of their newscast the next day was almost all my footage. So that was pretty exciting. Since then, the most exciting thing I've done was the Hurricane Ike in Houston. That was pretty exciting because most times you go to a hurricane and they send so many people to cover a hurricane, only 1 or 2 of those covering it are actually in the key areas where the hurricane is hitting. I went with a meteorologist who used all of his weather knowledge, and we got up early for our shift. We operated in shifts working out of KHOU in Houston, and we went to where we thought the eye of the hurricane would be. And driving in 100-mile-per-hour wind was one of the most memorable experiences. We got to the spot where the eye was going to cover the area. It was going to pass over that area within about 45 minutes of our arrival. So we were at the peak time of the hurricane. And the guy I was with, it was his life dream to stand up there in the wind and do that standing in the wind, reporting the hurricane. When I got out of the vehicle for the first time just to get my camera and everything, I felt like I was standing on the moon. I could barely stand. The water was hitting my face like little BBs. It felt like little stinging needles. When we did the stand up with the reporter, we couldn't use our wireless microphone because of the rain and everything, so we had to have a wire attached to us. I got my camera out, I got going, he jumped out, he got the microphone, he started going, I got a big gust of wind and I couldn't maintain my position, and I backed up until I lodged myself against the truck. He started, just as soon as he started, in the background we heard crashing sheet metal, and as he was talking, the metal kept crashing closer and closer to us. You have to keep in mind that where we were, there was no power whatsoever, so the only light we had were the headlights of the truck, and so the darkness, everything just disappeared behind us. And he finished his stand-up. He did a 1-minute stand-up perfectly the first time, threw me the mic, and when I turned around, the wind picked up my rain gear like a balloon and blew the camera off my shoulder, which I was able to hold on to it with the servo grip, and I pulled it and sort of smashed it between me and the truck in order to get the door open and get back in. And then we went from there and we had to drive back. As we drove further into town and got some shots in the town area. It was Texas City during the peak of the storm, and just as the eye wall began passing over us, we realized that we had to get to our live location, which was back in Houston. So we ended up driving back into the worst part of the storm. We actually stopped 3 times just because I thought the truck was going to roll over, until we got to our live location, which was a satellite truck parked next to a large building. So we used it as a windbreak, got the truck set up, did our live shots from that position, and we spent 4 days in Houston. 2 after the hurricane went through. No power. There was no power in our hotel. There was no water. There was no gas pumps, nothing. We had to take all of that with us. And luckily we were very well supplied, so we had everything we needed to get through until we came back.